Hi, welcome to another episode of Fresh Thinking with Optiro. My name's Ian Glacken. I'm an executive consultant at Snowden Optiro here in Perth, and I'm joined by Justine Tracey. Justine's the head of advisory for APAC for Snowden Optiro. I got it right. So we've got a couple of podcasts. This is the first one of two, and this is quite an interesting topic. We call it Mining the Truth. And the idea we're going to talk about, Justine's going to talk about, the importance of getting the data right at the exploration stage for resource estimation. As we know, we all hope that data from an exploration project is going to go into a resource estimate, because that's what it's all about, resource, reserve, mine. And Justine's going to talk about some of the things we need to think about, specifically as exploration geologists and early time geologists, what you need to think about with respect to data. So, how are you going, Justine?
Good, thanks, Ian.
Excellent. So, perhaps you could give me your take on what these podcasts are about.
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone who estimates mineral resource estimates are really passionate about the data quality that goes into them. So even though we're not doing the exploration work, I really want to talk about how important the data quality collection is, really understanding your data and also managing this data, because it's critical in going the next level, the next step of providing, say, an exploration target or a mineral resource.
Okay, so let's get straight to the nitty-gritty. What are the outcomes, or what are the implications of using bad data for a mineral resource estimate or an update?
So basically the mineral resource estimate, which is your model, which is a prediction, if you put bad data into it, you're providing a flawed representation of or a false conclusion of what really is there. So that could really lead to some adverse financial implications or lack of an investment into a project.
So can you be a bit more specific about exactly what defines bad data?
Yeah. So bad data is data that's incomplete, inadequate, inconsistent, outdated, or else just otherwise flawed. So bad data really can come from bad decisions by the practitioner, by poor quality data collection processes and assay processes. Bad data can actually just happen, sometimes by the process that's happening. We could talk about forever historical data sets, but I won't dwell on that. Bad data can be from not having QA/QC measures in practice or in place in this data. So not understanding if it is bad data or ways to analyse that. And also, like I said, understand using a database correctly. So data, which is good, could become bad data by mismanagement of it in a database or lack of database.
Yeah, I mean, as a geologist with many years' experience, when I first started, there just wasn't the emphasis on QA/QC, particularly on QA/QC, that there is now, and it was considered optional in those days. But we're going to talk about the JORC Code later on. But really, these days, QA/QC it's essential. It's part of the code and everything. So I agree with you that QA/QC is definitely one of the issues. Another issue is the sampling issue, quality of sampling and so on. But as you say, it might be many issues of bad data.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really important to understand the historical databases, because often we acquire data sets with data from different periods. So you need to understand if it has had the QA/QC or not. Even if you're a new geologist and you're using new data, it's really important to understand that old data doesn't always come at the same quality. So, Ian, I just want to discuss this statement. I've heard a lot of people say, they say bad data is worse than no data. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I mean, if the data is wrong, in other words, if the assays are wrong, and you can show that by reassay or drilling new holes, then you can't use it. But if it's something like, for instance, poor core recovery, or, the data's unreliable but not wrong, then I would say that's not true. I would say that you can use that data. And there's, without getting into very sophisticated techniques, there's a whole range of geostatistical techniques that allow you to handle uncertain data. And these days, we're very used to handling uncertainty through simulation or whatever. And there's a number of techniques that we can handle poor data, uncertain data. But if the data is wrong, then absolutely we shouldn't use it. So I wouldn't say that bad data is worse than no data. I would qualify it in saying that if it's uncertain data, then we can probably use that.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really all about knowing your data and understanding your data, and that's what we will focus on for the rest of this podcast.
So tell us about when good data becomes bad data. What happens there?
Yeah, so exploration programs do advance as you build up your knowledge of an ore body, and so we can use drilling campaigns, for example. When you're defining an anomaly or a target, you might commence with cheaper, less sophisticated drilling methods such as rotary air drilling, which does provide contamination but will allow you to identify whether your anomaly is worthy of following up with more sophisticated, better quality drilling. So if you replace that drilling with higher quality drilling and sampling processes such as your RC or your diamond holes, then you might consider that this earlier stage drilling, such as your RAB, is bad data in your database compared to your later drilling.
Yes, there's the issue of replacing early stage data, which is cheap, and because not every prospect turns into a resource estimate. But there's also things like, for instance, you might want to not sample every meter. You might sample 4 meter composites, and if it comes up with something, then you might want to go back and resample it. And that's an issue when we need to be careful about the data that we've collected already and make sure it doesn't contaminate the database. So we're here really to talk about what makes a maiden MRE, a mineral resource estimate. So what do we need for that maiden MRE?
Yeah, critical inputs for a maiden MRE is a topographic surface, is your validated drill hole database. This is critical. So what do you need for that? You need a collar, which has your northing, your easting, your RL, end of hole depth, and also identification of your drill hole type. So you also need a survey with your dip, your azimuth, and your survey type, and surveys at 0 and at end of hole at a minimum. Your assays, you need that with all your QA/QC data, and we'd recommend that multi-element assay is best. And you could also have your geology and also density data sets. So also, I guess with that, we also need a QA/QC report, which details what QA/QC has been done and the analysis of this QA/QC.
Okay, so we talked quite a bit about QA/QC, but setting aside the actual assays themselves, we've got other aspects of data quality. Can you elaborate on some of the other issues apart from, say, assays themselves about data quality?
Yeah, okay. So there's many inputs to your data quality. There's all your data collection, which is your sampling, your collection of your bulk density, your mapping, your logging, your survey, and your database management. So there's so many more inputs rather than just your assay. So it's really important that you do quality control on all these inputs and make the right decisions at all these input stages.
Yeah, so I would say, if you're dealing with precious metals or very low concentration elements, so gold, platinum, silver, sampling theory and sampling practice are all important. A lot of ore bodies with perfect assays have been undone by poor sampling practice. So, okay, so what are some of the things you can do to understand your data?
Yeah, okay. So it's critical to understand your data and its metadata. So manage that metadata and have that information in your database.
What is metadata?
Metadata is the information which goes along with all your inputs. So informing your collars, like what sort of collar information it is, what sort of assay information it is, what laboratories the assay came from, what sort of analysis type the assay was. Yeah, so it's also important to spend time analysing your data and your different data types to identify if any of them are flawed or biased. And then follow up this identification, or if there's any errors, immediately, because if there are errors, you don't want to keep on with the flawed program and spending more money and putting more money into the program. You don't want to make more bad decisions on earlier bad decisions. And you did mention before, Ian, the reporting code. It's really important to get familiar with the code and what is required for
Talking about the JORC Code in Australia here.
We are, yeah, in Australia.
Other codes do exist.
That's right, and there are podcasts discussing these
Indeed.
these codes in
Let's
depth.
focus on the JORC Code. So what does the JORC Code help? How does it help us to get good data?
So the JORC Code has some guiding principles based on materiality, transparency, and competence. And it also outlines we have to detail the representativity of our samples, how they are to the mineralisation, and the samples, the location and quality and the history that they've gone through. And that helps us decide the confidence of our estimate.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, again, going back into history, into the last millennium, you didn't have to comment on the quality of your data previously. This was before 2004, JORC 2004. Now you have to not only comment on the data, but you have a checklist, which is, as we know, we call that the Table 1. And essentially you need to answer every item in Table 1. And it's like a checklist, but the other issue is that we have this thing called if not, why not, which means that you can't just say not applicable, which means that if you have any dodgy areas of data, like, missing QA/QC or missing assays, you're forced to declare that. And that, to me, that forces us to generate good data. Having said that, it's still possible to generate bad data. You still have to have your wits about you, and we need to check as consulting groups. We often check people's data, so it's important.
Yeah. The consequence of that really, though, is if we do identify bad data, even if there's enough data to inform the estimate, we will still potentially downgrade our confidence classification of the model to lower confidence and give it more risk. And so then the project cannot advance into mining studies.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're a junior exploration company, you've obviously got your geology model, you've got your prospects, but the next stage is to collect the data, and to that extent, your largest asset, your biggest asset, your most important asset is that data. So it's important to get it right. And obviously, every exploration company aspires to have a resource estimate, a reserve, and a mine. So you should start as you mean to go on. In other words, you should collect the data, understanding that it may or will be used as part of a mineral resource estimate. It doesn't cost much more. It costs a little bit more, maybe. It doesn't cost that much more, but it certainly avoids problems further down the track.
Definitely. You want to avoid that legacy of collecting early stage bad data. So you've got, I guess, no rubbish in, no rubbish out.
Okay, thanks, Justine. That's part 1 of this podcast. If you'd like to listen to more of our Fresh Thinking podcast, you'll find them for free on the Snowden Optera website, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and most other good podcast platforms. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.